So another thing that happened today, I had an employee that I hired for basically I brought someone on who's gonna help me do more cold calls so I could free up my time because finding deals versus locking in deals versus analyzing versus a bunch of other stuff in your life, it gets really complicated time wise. So I wanted to allocate that to someone else. I brought someone on who was really good. And today was the first day I was ready for the results. I was super excited to see what it would look like. And I had everything set up. And the person calls me today in the morning and they're like, hey, I'm going to have to resign from the position. Like, I had a family issue, something with her daughter or something like that. And she had to resign. And now I'm back to the drawing board. I need to find someone else. And this is my fault. It's always your fault, guys. Lesson learned, you always have to have more people in the pipeline, more people ready to go. You need backup, backup, backup. And if you don't have backup, it's just laziness. So not only do you have to work on finding deals, finding employees, analyzing deals, raising the funding, um, what else? Talking to your board members, and then the rest of your life stuff, right? Those are all things you need to do while also finding backup options for board members. And it's like a constant spinning wheel that you have to be on to always cover your back, really. But I do want to state like what we're doing, like what is the business model. I guess if you're watching till this point and you're new, you're probably confused. So it's LBOs. We're using leverage to buy assets. LBO stands for leverage buyout. And I saw a guy today who did Section 8 properties. Basically, he would buy portfolios of real estate. He would buy a portfolio for like $1 million. Each property is like $100,000. And he'd buy these businesses. I guess like when you're that size, you're considered to be a business, like 10 properties or whatever. And he would turn them into Section 8 properties, which is guaranteed rent income from the government. And he would turn the NOI, like he would basically fix the business by just creating it to Section 8. And he does the same thing, guys. Like creating real wealth in many ways, it's all like very similar. You could use seller finance, you could use partnerships to acquire the assets and run it a certain way to improve it. That's how you create money. That's really how you create value. And it's in every single aspect, like the rich people that do real estate, businesses, even the people that are innovators, right? They want to buy business, like Tesla bought a couple companies. They bought like a German company. Um, Tesla isn't necessarily like an M&A company, but the real growth, like there's something special about acquiring another company. And it almost dates all the way back in time. It's like if you look at people in the medieval times, like the richest people were like conquerors or kings and queens, and they had all the gold, right? And they would just become richer and richer as they conquered more and more land because all the resources and all the people within those lands become theirs. So it's very similar to that. It's like modern day conquering is like acquiring another company. And as a result, you have like corporations and Fortune 500, Fortune 1000 companies. And it's just the olden days, the medieval times in modern times. You just acquire companies, just buy them up. It's pretty interesting. But yeah, things aren't always perfect, man. Like you can have okay, so for 6 months of me doing this, what did I learn? If you're gonna do this with a job, you need to extend your time horizon for sure. Because if it's not your all in focus, it's hard to get results really fast. You need to be, I mean, it's good to be optimistic, of course, but have like that plan set up just just expect it. That's all I'm saying. You know, if it's not your full focus, it's definitely a different process. Looking back through the videos, I wasted a lot of time going for accounting at law firms. That was probably like 2 months of my time. I wasted a lot of time, I guess, not like doing the cold calls myself. That's not necessarily a waste of time, but I could have tried to hire someone a lot sooner. Another thing, I could have looked more into my industry, found more courses that I could have used for free, or found more communities similar to mine. I could have spoke with other people more. I actually did speak with people who were doing what I was doing, but it was on a much smaller scale than I am right now. You want to speak with people who are already doing what you're doing. It doesn't have to be like the biggest people and you can't like reach out to them. You could find the same people doing what you're doing on like a smaller scale. They're still ahead of you, but you want to speak to those people. You don't necessarily need to have a mentor as much as you need to just speak to a lot of people. It's almost the same. It could almost give the same effect. Because I find that when I speak to one person who's doing what I do, and I kind of hear what they're doing versus what I'm doing, that one conversation does so much for me. So that's another thing I learned. Really looking back, building the board was pretty easy. The first board I made versus the second board I made is night and day difference. Like the board I have right now is an amazing board. They're so proactive and they're always like contacting me. They're always trying to help me. They have a lot of experience and I basically just use their brain. Like these are smart people and I'm able to just pick their brains on certain topics that I don't know that much about compared to them. Like these are experts in just hiring and firing. I could have done way better than I did in the beginning. I don't think hiring and firing should be like a rushed process. It should be more of like a concise, like accurate targeting kind of thing. You shouldn't be in a rush. You should always take your time and pick the right people. So that's why it's always good to have the backup options, because if someone all of a sudden goes and you need to hire someone fast, you look at it way differently. So it's good to have the backup options. You need to always be ready to hire and fire. There's a lot of good people out there, but you have to just not be scared of the turnover. Fear. I think looking back, was I scared of anything? I think I always faced the fears of what I had. For example, like if I send this guy this email, he's going to think of me this way, which is going to lead to him not wanting to do this thing. Like small fears versus like big fears of like, man, like the phone weighs like 900 pounds. I don't want to do any phone calls today. Like that's a different fear. I didn't necessarily have fears of doing cold calls. I don't have fears of like embarrassing myself. Even in front of the board members, I'll ask questions that like makes it seem like I don't know anything. I guess you don't want to exceed that too much. Everything excessive is not good, but I was never scared of any of that. That wasn't necessarily like my problem, I say. I think taking full accountability is something that I've always done, but maybe subconsciously I could have done better. Like subconsciously I kind of blamed things. I feel like when people blame things on other people or on other situations or circumstances, it's just an excuse for them to like give up. But with me, I guess in some instances I would blame a situation and still keep trying versus just blaming myself for putting myself in that situation. Like I know one person I spoke with that told me you need to build a board of directors and have a chairman. You need to have a chairman. It's the most important thing in the world. Like you won't succeed without it. Even if I had a chairman right now, I don't think it would be much different. I don't think I would have had way more deals on the table if I had a chairman. I think I could have targeted tertiary markets way more in the beginning than I did later. Like for example, the guy who does Section 8 that I was talking to you guys about earlier, he targets tertiary markets. When I was doing real estate, I found almost all of my results was in tertiary markets. Tertiary just means like smaller metroplexes that aren't like super popular. Um, like a northern Michigan or like a middle of like Louisiana, Mississippi, or like small towns that people wouldn't think of that are like so big, but they still have a lot of assets that are worth acquiring. They have um, they have houses that could be used for Section 8 that you could buy for really cheap, and you could even buy them using seller finance in certain circumstances. Seller finance is probably the biggest weapon of all time. If you know how to sit down with someone and be able to sell them or like convince them or create a deal with them to sell you a big asset, a big investment that they've made, if you're able to convert that and take that for yourself, you will create money. And even if you don't have money, seller finance is always a tool you could use. It's like just being a salesman and using seller finance, it has to be like the biggest weapon of all time. And I'm not gonna give up, man. I'm just gonna keep going after it.